Hello, world history. All right, we're going to get this done as quickly as possible. Number 1, during the 15th century, which 2 European countries began sea voyages for exploration? So you have to remember that both Portugal and Spain are the closest to geographically anyways, to the Americas. Also, remember that Portugal's Prince Henry set up navigation schools to train a generation of mariners. So it has to be B. Next one, number 2. What geographic feature of Spain and Portugal most enhanced their ability to engage in exploration? So very similar to the previous one, right? That peninsula that Portugal and Spain are on is called the Iberian Peninsula. Right. If you're trying to draw it out, just imagine this is Mexico, here is Latin America, it's Florida, right? Here's the Atlantic Ocean. And here is that peninsula. Here's Africa. And here's Spain. And that's Portugal. Right. So the location, if I were a ship going to the Americas, would be the shortest. So number 2 is A, peninsular location. Okay, number 3. Large areas in the north and south receive less than 10 inches of rainfall annually. The presence of waterfalls and rapids slowed river travel. Highlands and steep cliffs limited exploration. In which region did this geographic feature have an impact on European exploration and colonization? The first way to figure this one out is actually trying to eliminate the other answer choices. For example, if I look at India, right, I know that this can't be it because the Mughals ruled India during this time period. I also know that African kingdoms were basically independent and were actively, in the slave trade. And so we're not there yet. That's more third quarter, right? So this is independent kingdoms. So it has to be Southeast Asia or South America. It's A. If you just think about like what we've been talking about the first quarter, right? We just talked about colonization in the Americas. In Southeast Asia, the only colonization that happens is on small islands. At this point, right, you can either guess A and B, or if you study, a little bit each night, you should hear a lot about the Americas as you're going. Okay, number 4. All right. Which statement best describes a result of the encounter between Europeans and native populations of Latin America? This is another question where the process of elimination works well if you read everything and, know your history. A can't be true because I know that 50 to 90% of native populations died due to diseases. Okay, so it can't be A. European nations lost power and prestige in the New World. Well, that can't be true. I know that Europeans way more militarily powerful than Native Americans. Large number of natives migrated to Europe for a better life. I just honestly haven't really talked about this at all this quarter. Besides a select few, like, Pocahontas, most natives stayed in the Americas to work on plantations or died from diseases. So it has to be B. Okay? Good. Maize, potatoes, and potatoes were grown in Europe. Millions of Africans suffered from the Middle Passage. Smallpox had a devastating effect on the indigenous people. Spanish language is used in much of Latin America. Indigenous people, those are your Native Americans. Okay. So this one is just actually a vocabulary question. You just need to know that it was the Columbian Exchange. If you didn't know what the vocabulary for Columbian Exchange is, here it is, okay? The Columbian Exchange was a 200 plus years of biological exchange between the Old World and New World. And that is the Americas and Europe. Afro-Eurasia, actually, to be more specific. When I say biological exchange, okay, what I mean is people, right? These are slaves and European migrants, both of whom bring their culture with them, okay? Foods, this is plants and animals. Horses, pigs, for example. And finally, bacteria and diseases. Know the Columbian Exchange for your IAs, please. Number 6. What was a significant effect of the Columbian Exchange? Well, A happened before the Columbian Exchange. So this can't be true, right? I know that the Aztecs, you learned about them last year in 9th grade. And C, that's an enabling factor, not an effect. So this is one of those causes. So remember that you need to be able to identify causes and effects. And finally, D, it just isn't geographically correct, right? I'm in the Americas. The Columbian Exchange happened in the Americas, mostly between the New World and the Old World. So it can't be China. It has to be B, right? Potatoes, by the way, are one of the foods of the New World. Good. All right. Number 7, right? Number 7, you just need to be able to read this map. If you can't read the map, it's going to be hard to answer the question, okay? So I'm going to try to walk you through annotating this map. Based on your answer to question 7, base your answer to question 7 on the map below and your knowledge of social studies. So I'm going to look at the question, which of the following assertions is supported by illustrations above? If I read through each answer choice, I can see which one is either true or false. So number 1, right? Most slaves were taken by Europeans from East Africa and transported straight to the Americas. So I'm going to look right here, right? I know that this is north, south, west, and east. East Africa would be over here. As I can see, right, most of my slaves are in West Africa. So I can cross out A. The majority of slaves captured between 1500 and 1900 were taken into the Caribbean islands to labor in cash crop plantations. So let's take a look at that. All right, I look at my key, and I see that the bigger the arrow, or the thicker the arrow, the more people. The thinner the arrow, the least amount of people, or less amount of people. So I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing here's 1500 to 1900, and it's a giantly, right, thick arrow. I need to see where they're going now. So I'm seeing Caribbeans, and I'm seeing actually smaller arrows. So, but this is pretty big right here. So I'm not going to actually cross out B. I'm going to put a dot next to it and see what else there is. Majority of slaves were captured from the western coast of Africa in exchange for Asian goods along the Silk Roads. Whoa, Silk Roads, right? That is all the way that way to the east. All right, so it can't be C because that's not even on the map. The majority of slaves were transported to South America and to work in the sugar